All right, where we left off. Last week we were in the book of Esther, and here's Esther, Jacob DeGrom, straight out of my office. Esther, she became the queen to King Ahasuerus, Marcus Simeon. And then over here, little Adolis Garcia is Mordecai. Now, just to catch you up, and back here's Vashti. That was the former queen to King Ahasuerus, but she didn't show up at the dinner table, so he got divorced from her, and she's been traded. So, but these three, let me go back and explain, because it was kind of gruesome talking about last week. The fact that a little Jewish virgin girl, and I'm talking young, is put into this beautification factory, all so that she can sleep with the king. Not that that's what she wanted, but she was taken and she was placed into this system. That's just sick. The whole thing was sick. Literally, he slept with all these women in a harem that were virgins, that were chosen for him. They were beautified. They were young. And then once he slept with them, they were put into a second harem of concubines, because now they are no longer virgins. But when he met Esther, she was so beautiful that he said, I want to make her the queen. You have complete authority, major authority, that can do whatever he wants in the world, because he was the Persian king and the Persian Empire was dominant. So he could have whatever he wanted. This wife wasn't good enough, so now we have to find him a new wife. And the Jews had been exiled because of the Babylonian captivity in 586, and they've been spread out all over the world. And so now she got thrown into this harem and this mix. But you have major authority and a young Jewish girl. And you go, why? Why did this happen? Again, we said at the end of the service, there's always a bigger picture. There's always a bigger picture. I pick up at the end of chapter 2 where we left off. Let me say this. Got a real active bobblehead right here. It's kind of distracting me. Yeah, he's agreeing with me, yes, for sure. Mordecai is like the uncle to Esther, because Esther's parents have died probably in the exile. So she doesn't even have parents, but Mordecai is her uncle, and he's literally looking out for her. Like, he's raised her, and he's like looking out for her. And you go, okay, that's even like makes the story even worse, that she doesn't have her parents, that she's an orphan, and that her uncle, not even her aunt, but her uncle is raising her. Watch. When the virgins were gathered a second time, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. That's a huge verse. Let me break that down for you. Evidently, the reassembling of the virgins was part of a procession that the king designed to show off the beauty of all of his ladies. Like, he would bring them back in and he would parade them. This is how sick the whole thing is. And he would say, this is Esther, who I chose over all these other women, these beautiful women. And so they reassembled. But here's the thing, is now that we go, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. Mordecai evidently received an appointment to a governmental position, because if you're seated at the king's gate, this is where everybody came for their judicial questions. And now Mordecai Esther's uncle is sitting at the king's gate, and he's making decisions for the whole Persian kingdom, those that come to him. Pretty crazy that God not only makes Esther the queen of Persia, but also places her uncle as the judge. We get that in one verse. Verse 20, it says, Esther still did not reveal her family background or her ethnicity, as Mordecai had directed. She obeyed Mordecai's orders, as she always had while he raised her. So she's Jewish, and as you know, even to this day, there is anti-Semitism, which is basically those who are against Jews. Semitism is against Jews. And now the same thing is happening there. She doesn't want to reveal to the king that she's actually Jewish, even though she's the queen. If she says, I'm a Jew, it taints things. And Mordecai says, don't tell him that you're a Jew. And it says, she obeys Mordecai. It's almost as if she, I said God's never mentioned in this book, Esther. She's almost more faithful to Mordecai than she is to God at this point. That's what it looks like. Verse 21, it says, during those days while Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthan and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who guarded the entrance, became infuriated and planned to assassinate King Ahasuerus. When Mordecai learned of the plot, he reported it to the Queen Esther, and she told the king on Mordecai's behalf. So now there's this plot. Two of the king's men have decided, we don't like the king, we're going to kill him. Mordecai hears about it because he's like at the king's gate. And all of a sudden he tells Esther, and Esther gets to go tell her husband that there's a plot to be murdered. And obviously he escapes because, or to show you what happens here, it's interesting to know that Ahasuerus actually is murdered about 14 years later. 23, it says, when the report was investigated and verified, both men were hanged on the gallows. The gallows would be either a tree or a long pole. Typically when they were killed, and this is Artaxerxes. Ahasuerus' name is Artaxerxes. His dad was Xerxes, King Darius right before him. Probably impaled like 3,000 men. That means he killed 3,000 men by stabbing them with a sword. And this is how they killed them. So now, as Ahasuerus has impaled these two men and he's hung them from the gallows, as to say, look, they plotted against me. I want everybody to publicly see what their penalty is. They're dead. It says, this event was recorded in historical record in the king's presence. Then we get to chapter 3. After all this took place, King Ahasuerus honored Haman. Oh, we got a new one. Haman. This is Bob Euchre. Now Haman comes into play. It says, son of Hammedatha the Agagite. He promoted him in rank and gave him a higher position than all the other officials. The entire royal staff at the king's gate bowed down. Who's at the king's gate? Mordecai. It says, he promoted him in rank and gave him a higher position than all the other officials. The entire royal staff at the king's gate bowed down and paid homage to Haman because the king had commanded this to be done for him. But Mordecai would not bow down or pay homage. I'm not bowing down to Haman. Now, there's all sorts of theories by theologians about why Mordecai wouldn't, because it's like we're not supposed to bow to other men, which you can go throughout the scripture and you can see that Jews actually did bow down to other men throughout the scripture, so you don't know if it's that. But I think that he knows that Haman has Semitism towards the Jews, that he's like, hates the Jews, and Mordecai's like, I'm bowing down to him. He doesn't even like my people. It says, the members of the royal staff at the king's gate asked Mordecai, why are you disobeying the king's command? When they had warned him day after day, and he still wouldn't listen to them, they told Haman in order to see if Mordecai's actions would be tolerated, since he had told them he was a Jew. Oh, the guys went and tattletaled. Haman, Mordecai's not bowing down to you, and he's a Jew. What are you going to do about it? Draw the line, step across the line. What are you going to do about it, Haman? When Haman saw that Mordecai was not bowing down or paying homage, he was filled with rage. And when he learned of Mordecai's ethnic identity, it seemed repugnant to Haman to do away with Mordecai alone. He planned to destroy all of Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout Ahasuerus' kingdom. How many times has this been attempted? Let's wipe out the Jews. You can go back to Pharaoh. Pharaoh was going to wipe out the Jews. You can bring it all the way forward to Hitler and even Nasser in Egypt in 1967. Let's just wipe out the Jews. Never been successful yet. It says, in the first month, the month of Nisan, in King Ahasuerus' 12th year, the pure, that is, the lot, was cast before Haman for each day in the month, and it fell on the 12th month, the month Adar. Now, what that just basically said is Haman has made this plot, this plan to kill all the Jews. They rolled the die, they cast the lot, the pure, and said, this is the day. This is the day that all the Jews are going to be wiped out. They even have now determined a date that his plan, Haman's plan, was going to come into effect. But watch this. Who controls the die? Who controls the lot? Who controls the pure that's thrown? According to Proverbs 16:33, watch this. The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. The Lord chose the day. The Lord chose the day that Haman's plan was going to be played out. It just so happened that it wasn't this year, it was the next year. Literally, they had time to prepare to defend themselves. We're going to give them a whole year to prepare for this. And evidently, the Jews named their feast Purim, that they do in remembrance, in honor of the lots that Haman cast, but obviously which God controlled, as a tribute to God protecting them, not to ruin the story. Verse 8, then Haman informed King Ahasuerus, there is one ethnic group scattered throughout the peoples in every province of your kingdom, keeping themselves separate. Their laws are different from everyone else's, and they do not obey the king's law. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. What Haman is really saying right here is that the Jews do not acknowledge the sovereignty of the king, and this really constitutes treason. They need to be done with. They need to be slaughtered. If the king approves, let an order be drawn up authorizing their destruction, and I will pay 375 tons of silver to the officials for deposit in the royal treasury. In other words, when we kill the Jews, we'll take their money, and we will take that and we'll put it in the king's bank account. The king removed his signet ring. He wore this ring with a symbol in it, and he would literally take it and seal it into a wax to say, this is official. It says, the king removed his signet ring and with his hand and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and the enemy of the Jews. Then the king told Haman, the money and the people are given to you to do with you see fit. This is your deal. You even keep the money, because if I take the money, then they think I'm doing this for the money. But I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this because treason. They won't bow down. They're different. They're not listening. The royal scribes were summoned on the 13th day of the first month, and the order was written exactly as Haman commanded. It was intended for the royal satraps, the governors of each of the provinces, and the officials of each ethnic group, and written for each province in its own script, and to each ethnic group in its own language. It was written in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with the royal signet ring. Who had the signet ring? Haman had the signet ring. He's the one that wrote it, distributed it, sealed it. He did everything. Letters were sent by couriers to each of the royal provinces telling the officials to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jewish people, young and old, women and children, and plunder their possessions on a single day, the 13th day of Adar, the 12th month. A copy of the text issued as law throughout every province was distributed to all the peoples so that they might be ready for that day. The couriers left, spurred on by royal command, and the law was issued in the fortress of Susa. Remember that they lived in this city of Susa, and probably a good number of Jews lived in Susa. The king and Haman sat down to drink while the city of Susa was in confusion. Like, you have both Jews and Gentiles living in Susa, and they're like, what is about to happen? Did you read this? And they're sitting at the royal table going, cheers. We're about to do away with the Jews. Chapter 4. When Mordecai learned all that had occurred, this Mordecai, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth ashes, went into the middle of the city and cried loudly and bitterly. Why is he grieving? Because not only is it him, but it's his people. Plus, I think that you in this room would know how the enemy works as well. There has to be a sense of like guilt. Is it because I didn't bow down to Haman that all this is coming about? You know how the evil one messes with you and points the finger at you and says, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. That's probably what's going on with Mordecai. And he's grieving. And he puts on this sackcloth, which is a sign of oppression. He said, he went only as far as the king's gate, since the law prohibited anyone entering sackcloth from entering the king's gate. You can't get in if you're wearing sackcloth. There was great mourning among the Jewish people in every province where the king's command and edict reached. They fasted, wept, and lamented, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. Esther's female servants and her eunuchs came and reported the news to her, and the queen was overcome with fear. They're going to do what? She sent clothes for Mordecai to wear so that he would take off his sackcloth. Mordecai. Now the tables have turned. Mordecai's like in this position where he's depressed, and all of a sudden Esther's in this high position, and she says, get your head up. Get your head up. Put on real clothes. Let's stop this. It says, but he did not accept them. Esther summoned Hathach. Oh, here's Hathach. Nathaniel Lowe. Esther summons Hathach. And it says, what verse am I on? 5, sorry. Esther summoned Hathach, one of king's eunuchs, who attended her, and dispatched him to Mordecai to learn what he was doing and why. So literally she's like going, Hathach, you need to go to Mordecai, and you need to find out what is going on with him, what's he thinking, what's he going to do. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the city square in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that had happened, as well as the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay the royal treasury for the slaughter of the Jews. The fact that he knows exactly how much that the king is going to get paid or how much Haman is going to keep tells you something. That Mordecai literally has authority and power in the kingdom because he knows exactly how much money they've mentioned. Like, he does have a royal position there. Mordecai is important to the king. It says Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa ordering their destruction, so that Hathach might show it to Esther, explain it to her, and command her to approach the king, implore his favor, and plead with him personally for her people. Hathach came and repeated Mordecai's response to Esther. So now Hathach finds out everything from Mordecai. He actually gives him a copy of the decree, and Hathach takes it back to Esther. Esther spoke to Hathach and commanded him to tell Mordecai, all the royal officials and the people of the royal provinces know that one law applies to every man or woman who approaches the king in the inner courtyard, and who has not been summoned the death penalty unless the king extends the gold scepter, allowing that person to live. I have not been summoned to appear before the king for the last 30 days. Esther's response was reported to Mordecai. So literally, Esther says to Hathach, you have to be requested by the king to be able to appear before the king. You're his wife. Still, got to be summoned by the king. So Hathach goes and tells Mordecai, look, she hasn't been summoned for the last 30 days. Like, he hasn't slept with her for the last 30 days is basically what it's saying. Like, I haven't had a chance to, like, even say anything to Ahasuerus. I can't just go before him. This all was part of, Herodotus wrote this in the earliest times about how this took place with the Persians, how you had to come before the king and you had to be summoned before the king. So it's all part of history right here. Verse 13, it says, Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther, don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows, perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. So he's literally telling Hathach this. Look, if you think that you're going to go back and tell her, if you think that you're going to escape this, you are absolutely wrong. He's going to find out that you're a Jew. And when he does, they don't have any choice but to kill you because it's now made a law. You're going to die along with your people unless you intercede to the king. He's like, but Esther, what if God put you in this position for a reason? What if God's placed you there? He doesn't say God. Verse 15, Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my female servants will also fast in the same way. After that, I will go to the king, even if it is against the law. If I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went and did everything Esther had commanded him. She literally said, go tell him, get everybody together in Susa, fast, pray, da-da-da-da-da. Well, obviously, who are they praying to? They're praying to God because they're Jewish. Never mentions God. But they do this. They begin together. They begin to fast and to pray. Chapter 5, the last one we're going to cover today. On the third day, Esther dressed in her royal clothing and stood in the inner courtyard of the palace facing it. Can you imagine what she looked like? The most beautiful woman in the world, dressed for the king. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the royal courtroom facing its entrance. As soon as the king saw Queen Esther, she's all dolled up in her fancy dress, makeup on, beautified. She gained favor with him. Oh, that's all it took, guys. All you have to do is look at him. That's all it took. The king extended the gold scepter in his hand toward Esther, and she approached and touched the tip of the scepter. I accept. I come before you. What is it, Queen Esther? The king asked her. Whatever you want, even half the kingdom, it will be given to you. Now, he's not going to give her half the kingdom, but that's just a statement that they say that You literally can ask for whatever you want. If it pleases the king, Esther replied, may the king and Haman come today to the banquet I have prepared for them. What? You've prepared a banquet? You fixed a meal for me and Haman? The king said, hurry and get Haman so we can do as Esther has requested. So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared. While drinking the wine, the king asked Esther, remember, he's a heavy drinker. We already established that in the first couple of chapters. So now he's full of wine, and he again asks the question, whatever you ask will be given to you, whatever you want, even to half the kingdom will be done. Esther answered, this is my petition and my request. If it pleases the king to grant my petition and perform my request, may the king and Haman come to the banquet I will prepare for them. Tomorrow I will do what the king has asked. Now, she's literally asking for a second banquet. She's already got one, got him and husband there and Haman there, gets him drunk, wants a second banquet. And it is actually a very clever move on Esther's part to disarm Haman and make him think that he's the center of attention. Like, the queen has invited me to a banquet with her and the king. I must be important. This plays to Haman's like personal weakness, and it's also part of Esther's plan. And it's very, very crucial that Haman attend the next party, where indeed he is going to be the center of attention. The party to come was then as much for Haman as it was for the king. That day, Haman left full of joy and good spirits. He's drunk. But when Haman saw Mordecai at the king's gate, remember, he's drunk and he's leaving. He's walking out the king's gate and he sees Mordecai the Jew. Mordecai didn't rise or tremble in fear at his presence. Haman was filled with rage towards Mordecai. All he had to do was look at him. And he was filled with rage. Because why? Because he was a Jew. Yet Haman controlled himself and went home. He sent for his friends and his wife Zeresh. Now Haman has a wife. It's a half. Who makes a half Nolan Ryan bobblehead? Not sure, but now Haman has a wife. We'll put her right there. He says, yet Haman controlled himself and went home. He sent for his friends and his wife Zeresh to join him. Then Haman described for them in his glorious wealth and his many sons. He told them all how the king had honored him and promoted him in rank over the other officials and royal staff. It's all about me. I'm Haman. I'm important. What's more, Haman added, Queen Esther invited no one but me to join the king at the banquet she had prepared. I am invited again tomorrow to join her with the king. Still, none of this satisfies me since I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate all the time. You see, a person of good character overlooks sights against himself or herself. But a person, man or woman with inferior character, they have a tendency to magnify themselves. And this is what's taking place here. The last few verses. His wife Zeresh and all of his friends told him, have them build a gallows 75 feet tall. Gallows, so if they're going to build it, it's not going to be a tree, it's going to be a pole. 75 feet. You know how big 75 feet is? That's like a 7-story building. 7 stories. It says, have them build gallows 75 feet tall. Ask the king in the morning to hang Mordecai on it. Then go to the banquet with the king and enjoy yourself. Like, if Mordecai is upsetting you that much that you just like look at him and he gets you going, just kill him. And hang him up so everybody can see him. The advice pleased Haman, so he had the gallows constructed. And I leave you hanging. I said Charles Swindoll was the president of Dallas Theological Seminary. He said this about this story we just told you. This is Swindoll. First, When preparing for an unprecedented event, wait on the Lord before getting involved. Second, when dealing with an unpredictable person, count on the Lord to open doors and hearts. It's kind of what I started this whole day off with. Third, when working through an unpleasant situation, trust the Lord for enduring patience. Fourth, when standing against an unprincipled enemy, ask the Lord for invincible courage. It's a great story. Even though it doesn't mention God, it's all about God, His grace and mercy. I hope that you can join me next week. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for all our discussion. Just thank you for Esther and Mordecai. The courage and the bravery and the trust in you that is displayed throughout the story. I pray that we benefit from that we can see your faithfulness through all this. And I pray these things in Jesus' name, amen.